And welcome back to Sports Night. Time to talk now about the business of sports with Kristi Dosh, our Miss Sports Biz. Hi, Kristi. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, we've been talking about the baseball playoffs, and I know you're a huge baseball fan, particularly of the Atlanta Braves. They're out in San Francisco to start the playoffs. However, they come back and play on Sunday, and that brings up a question. One, are you going to go to the game, first of all?
Well, of course I am. I wouldn't miss it.
All right. Now, how about the rest of the fans? Because I want to talk to you about the ticket sales in postseason. That's always a question, particularly with our southern teams, Tampa Bay and the Braves. What do they look like? What's your analysis of postseason ticket sales?
I think the Braves have done a good job selling. They didn't find out until Sunday, that they were definitely going, and I think ticket sales have gone really well since then. As for the Rays, things have gone great. The Rays actually sold out their first 2 home games before they even knew what times the games were going to be.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the playoffs and also the television on that. Do you think the television and the broadcast windows and when these games are going to be, does that have anything to do with ticket sales? And has that made all the teams happy? I'm guessing probably not.
I heard a radio announcer down in Tampa yesterday complaining about the game times. Obviously, on Wednesday and Thursday, they ended up with daytime games. Like I said, the tickets were already sold out, so luckily, they had already gotten their money. But fans were a little unhappy. They felt like since the Rays won the division and the Yankees ended up with the wild card, they didn't really understand why the Yankees, deserved to get the primetime spot while the Rays got stuck with the daytime games. I think there's a pretty simple answer for that in terms of, nationwide fan base, which game you want to show during prime time.
Sure, they'd always pick the Yankees games. That makes sense. I understand how the Tampa Bay Rays could feel about that, though. And speaking of money in the playoffs, everybody always wonders how the money works for players. Talk about the players' playoff pool.
I've always found this really interesting, how the actual gate receipt money gets split between players and the teams. So first you've got to understand that you've got required games and non-required games. Obviously in a 5-game series like the division series, 3 of the games are required and 2 are not. And then with the league championship series and the World Series, you've got 4 required games, 3 that are not. And the money is split between the players and the clubs for those required games. The players actually get 60% of the gate receipts. It's all put into one big pool that's divided out on the back end after all of the postseason games are over, and then the teams split the remaining money. However, for non-required games, the players get no share in that, and it appears to be that the reason for that is you don't want to encourage players to maybe throw one of those required games to get into a non-required game and make more money.
Yeah, we don't want to be having Black Sox 1919
exactly.
Coming back up again. We got to switch over and talk about some money as it involves college football. And always it seems, as every time I turn around, the BCS has another challenge coming their way, the most controversial championship designation system that I've ever heard of, certainly. And I'm hearing about a group that you're talking about called Playoff Pack. What does that mean?
I've been talking about this group a lot lately because I find them fascinating. Playoff PAC is a political action committee, and if you don't know what that is, put simply, they're basically a lobbying group, and their effort is to turn the BCS into what they consider a more equitable playoff system. And the way that they've gone about this has been interesting. They filed an IRS complaint recently. It was a 27-page complaint put together, I understand, by 6 different attorneys and an accountant. And one of the guys who signed the complaint is actually the former head of non-taxable entities for the IRS.
So what does that mean in terms of a challenge to the BCS Bowl? What kind of things are they showing, like how much the CEOs of the bowls make, whether it's an effective way for nonprofit status? How does that all wash out for the BCS?
Absolutely. So all of the Bowl Championship Series bowls are nonprofit entities. They have the same 501c3 designation that groups like the American Red Cross have. And one of the kind of irregularities that Playoff PAC found was in the amounts that the CEOs of these bowls are making. They're making well above what they found to be the average for nonprofit entities that work with the same sort of operating budget. I think up at the top you're up over $600,000 for the CEOs, whereas the average is only $185,000 for other nonprofits.
Do you think this kind of organization like the Playoff PAC, can they really make a difference with the BCS and maybe get the BCS to move aside in a playoff system, or is this really just so much wind across the plains?
You know, for all the efforts that I've seen over the past few years, this one's carrying the most weight. I think the way that they're going about it, you know, they're not just talking about, hey, look at this team that didn't end up in the playoffs and should have, or look at this team that's in, you know, a non-automatic qualifying conference who isn't making as much money, but they're winning. Instead of throwing out those same facts that we've heard over and over, they're discovering these little inaccuracies with the way these bowls are actually run. And, you know, the IRS can do anything from fining the bowls to actually removing their tax-exempt status.
Well, I know that'll simplify everything if we get the government and the IRS involved in the BCS. This is Miss Sports Biz Kristi Dosh. Kristi, thanks for being with us again.
Thanks for having me.
On the business of sports. And we'll be back with more Sports Night in a minute.
After this quick timeout,